Now, tonight it's supposed to be an evening of questions and answers, and Swami Brahmananda will read the questions or ask the questions, and I'm going to do my level best to answer. So Swami Brahmananda is going to start right now.
Om Swamiji. I feel like shyness and fear of other people are impeding my spiritual development. What can I do?
Change your point of view. Ultimately, those people that give us lots of difficulties, in a sense, it's possible that they are our best friends on the spiritual path. This year we had a speaker, and the speaker mentioned that if you want to polish a surface, you need to use sandpaper. If you use silk, the silk will not do the job. You need actually sandpaper. So these difficult people, they are the sandpaper for us. They polish the surface of our heart and of our minds and help us to develop very elevated qualities which are necessary for the spiritual path. So although they make our life miserable, ultimately we are very thankful to them. I wanted to say let's give them a big hand. But this is more or less. Okay, what's the next question?
Om Swamiji. Lately, when I practice asana and pranayama, it seems to produce more energy than I can handle in the body. Because of this, I've cut down my practice. I want to go deeper in these practices because I feel it raises my consciousness and vibration more effectively than anything else. But I also don't know how to handle the energy that comes with it. What should I do?
You should go to Parvati and ask to help her in the garden. Next.
Om Swamiji. When I read about the asana practices of great yogis, such as Swami Vishnudevananda, they often talk of doing postures for a long time. Swami Sivananda mentions doing the headstand for 30 minutes. Can you please describe a typical asana practice of someone like Swami Vishnu?
We say holding the posture for a long time, not holding. And it depends. It depends. There are many different practices within Hatha Yoga. Regarding asanas, there are different methods that are being followed. One method is to hold postures for a very short time, but to repeat them many times. The other methods are synchronizing between the postures and the breathing, and in such a way that while holding the postures, you also hold your breath. Naturally, we cannot hold the breath for a very long period of time. Therefore, the posture needs to be repeated many times. So there are many, many ways of practicing the yoga asanas according to the purpose that we set before ourselves when we practice these asanas. We need to remember the yoga asanas are part of a profound spiritual practice which is called Hatha Yoga, with very lofty goals like samadhi. Therefore, there are many ways of practicing Hatha Yoga, of these yoga asanas. Now, one of the ways, and again, this needs to be given by the Guru, one of the ways is to hold certain postures for a long time. And this will be either the meditative postures or some of the cultural postures, like headstands, for example. In this case, we learn gradually to hold those postures for longer and longer periods of time. And there are other instructions, like what to do with the mind while we hold the posture, what to do with the breath while we hold the posture, how to relax the body while we hold the posture, and so on. So there are certain yoga asanas that we are instructed to conquer, to attain what we call asana jaya. Asana jaya means victory over the asana. And we are talking about very long periods of holding those yoga asanas. So masters like Swami Vishnudevananda mastered all these postures. He attained victory over the asanas and was able to hold the postures for very long periods of time. Normally, ordinary practitioners will not hold postures for so long. So it depends on the instruction of the guru. Means that in Hatha Yoga you have a guru and the guru instructs you how to hold the postures for how long and so on. And it may differ from person to person. Those practitioners that are within the path of Hatha Yoga, they practice what we call proper Hatha Yoga, and they go deep within this practice, may be instructed by the guru to develop certain practices up to the point of asana jaya or conquering the yoga asana. So for example, the person that asked the question asked about the practice of Swami Vishnudevananda. Swami Vishnudevananda was a master of Hatha Yoga, which means that he walked the path of Hatha Yoga from beginning to its very, very end. He attained all the goals of this practice, including the highest goals, and he was a true master of Hatha Yoga. Of course, Swami Sivananda was also a true master of Hatha Yoga. So Swamiji was able to do things which were extraordinary. He could do extraordinary things with his physical body. He could do extraordinary things with the breath, and he could do extraordinary things with the mind. But in relation to his students, Swamiji taught us how to conduct a balanced yoga class, how to practice the yoga asanas, the yogic postures, the pranayama, the yogic breathing, the relaxation and so on in a balanced way. And when he taught us the balanced way, he warned us not to hold the postures too long. So he indicated more or less how long to hold each posture. So in my memory, and I spent quite a few years with Swamiji, and he trained me in Hatha Yoga, he did not indicate to hold postures for very long, unless, and again I say unless, you were following a very strict path of Hatha Yoga, in which case for special individuals, special means for students that followed proper Hatha Yoga, for some of them he would indicate holding the postures for a very long time. So it's very individual. It depends on the person and on the instruction of the guru. Okay?
Om Swamiji. Right now, my spiritual practice is so deep and intense. I feel so much devotion that a strong fear rises. Why is this fear coming, and how to overcome it?
It's very difficult to renounce the world. The spiritual path has within itself certain things which are of the nature of renunciation and detachment or non-attachment, and they happen spontaneously, naturally, as a result of certain spiritual insights or spiritual realizations. And because because we have many, many attachments, when these experiences are coming, many times fear accompanies them. And at that time it's very good to visualize our own guru and to offer that fear as an offering, as a prasad to our own guru, and to ask for help. That fear slows down our path, but it also has a benefit, because sometimes it saves us from grave dangers. But there are many methods to deal with that fear. One good method that Swamiji taught me was, when it comes, visualize your guru and pray to your guru, and the guru will help. The guru is your own spiritual preceptor. So the same advice that Swamiji gave me, I'm giving to you. And as for the reasons of the fear I mentioned, fear is mainly due to attachment. And fear is also due to the sense of duality that we are afraid to lose because of the spiritual practices. All fear comes from the experience of duality. And fear is transcended or abolished by the experience of the oneness of all life. So when we are at the gate of oneness, that fear comes because we are afraid to abandon duality. And this is a great fear. But with the help of the Guru, we may gather enough courage to plod on and to progress and to enter into the realm of non-duality without any fear. Okay.
Om Swamiji, how do you know for sure you are following your duty? What are the signs? For example, an aspirant has elderly parents that are very needy, but is compelled to be in the ashram to study and teach. What is his duty?
It's very difficult to generalize because I don't know the details. But sometimes the duty will be to go and help the parents. And other times the duty will be to stay in the ashram. So to be able to answer this question, I really need to know more details. And as for how do we know what our duty is, in ancient times it was very easy. You knew your duty, for example, if you were a student. It was known what are the duties of a student. The rishis, the ancient sages, wrote manuals about dharma, about conduct. And they wrote the principles of what is the proper conduct of a student, what is the proper conduct of a teacher, what is the proper conduct of merit people, what is the proper conduct of a kshatriya, a warrior, what is the proper conduct of a king, what is the proper conduct of a sannyasin. And then they wrote a lot about swadharma, duty, our mission in life. So within the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna that when you have doubts about duty, consult the scriptures, consult the advice of the great sages, and follow that advice, put it into practice. So on our own it's difficult to know what is the duty, therefore we need to get advice of enlightened people. And my experience with Swami Vishnudevananda, which was such a master, was that he didn't give great lectures about duty, but moment by moment he taught what is dharma, what is a path of righteousness, what is adharma, what is a path which is contrary to righteousness, and what is swadharma, what is the meaning of duty. For example, if I am a disciple, my duty is to follow the instructions of my guru. This is the spiritual instructions. But, for example, if you're a householder your duty may be different. Householders have very beautiful duties. Within the Vedas there are those 5 great sacrifices, which are the duties of householders. And they are very, very beautiful, like taking care of animals and taking care of poor people and studying the scriptures of the rishis and so on. Very beautiful duties. Serving society and so on. So according to our walk of life and our circumstances, the ancient sages gave very beautiful instructions about duty. Nowadays, these scriptures that Lord Krishna talks about are not always accessible to everyone. Therefore, we can approach our own spiritual preceptor and he will give us good guidance. And there is another thing. Certain things that were taught thousands of years ago may not be so appropriate for our times. So again, we need a specific guidance from a teacher. I remember approaching Swami Vishnudevananda, my guru, after becoming a Swami. And I came to him with all the rules that a Swami is supposed to follow. There are many, many rules. And some of them are quite difficult because they were written down in the 8th century. And when I asked him the question, that this was the 20th century, and I didn't know how is it possible to put in practice these rules of conduct. And he gave me a very short and very beautiful instruction that made everything clear and simple for me, and I understood how to follow the conduct of a Swami in spite of all the conflicts that I saw when I studied the scripture. So it's very helpful to have a teacher, because without a teacher, we may be confused regarding how to put into practice what is written in the scripture. So we live in a time when we don't have much knowledge about duty and how to conduct our life according to duty. Therefore, it's a very good advice at that time to approach a teacher and to have a serious discussion, a practical discussion, and to get some good advice. In the ancient time, there were many tools given by the sages that helped both the teachers but also the students to know and to understand what is the appropriate duty. For example, Jyotish, that Swami Swaroopananda is quite knowledgeable about, gave good indications about duty, because the person could know what are the appropriate things for him to do in that particular life. Because we are born with a life mission. We are born with certain things that we are supposed to do in a particular life according to karma and according to the structure of our mind. So in ancient times, there were very good tools and very good teachers to guide the spiritual aspirants and the people at large. But it is my experience that also nowadays there are good teachers. In my case, I met Swami Vishnudevananda, but there are good teachers that can help the spiritual aspirants to understand better how to follow a life according to his or her swadharma, own duty in this particular life. So this is my advice. Just consult with a good teacher, and you may need more than one discussion about duty, about conduct in life, about the life mission, about the direction in our life. There are relative duties and there are ultimate duties. This is another thing to discuss. So this is my main advice. Find a good teacher and ask the teacher and have conversations with the teacher about duty, and if the teacher gives good advice, try to put it into practice. Okay.
Swamiji, can you please elaborate on Lord Krishna's teaching from the Bhagavad Gita on action in inaction and inaction in action? how can we bring this teaching into our lives?
It sounds difficult, but it's not difficult. The teaching of Lord Krishna was quite simple. He said that it's very difficult to understand what is action and what is inaction. And because it is so difficult to understand what is action and what is inaction, some people consider inaction to be action, and they consider action to be inaction, and vice versa. They confuse between action and between inaction. They don't know truly what is inaction, and they don't know truly what is action. But the wise know what is inaction, and they know the true nature of action, and therefore they never get confused. So the idea here is quite simple, that what we consider to be action requires a doer, right? And action requires an actor. And actions also usually have a motive behind them. So they require a motive, an intention, a goal that is set as the fruit or as the purpose of that particular action. Usually we will not do an action which is intentional unless we have a desire for a fruit of that particular action. And then we don't just have a desire for the fruit, we would like to experience the fruit of the action. In other words, we would like to enjoy the fruit of this particular action. So if we look at it, we see we consider ourselves doers or actors. We have desires which impel us into action, which we consider the action to be ours because we are the doers of the action. We do the action in order to fulfill certain desires. The result of the action is the fruit of the action. We desire to experience the fruit and to enjoy it. So we become the enjoyers of that action. And this thing, the idea that we are doers or actors, the idea that we are doers of action, the idea that we have desires that we need to fulfill, the idea that action has results which we will reap, which we will experience and enjoy, all of these ideas actually are confused, illusory, and false. And because they are confused, illusory, and false, they impel us into a cycle which is based on ignorance that perpetuates us within a cyclical existence of suffering which is called samsara. Basically, these illusory ideas push us into a perpetual cycle of suffering. And that ignorance which impels us to enter into this perpetual cycle of suffering, that ignorance is the root cause of that suffering, which is the suffering that we experience within our existence as human beings and so on. So suffering to a very great degree, according to this teaching, is due to our wrong notions about what is action, what is inaction, what is a doer, what is an actor, what is the fruit of action, what is the enjoyer of the fruit of action. All of these things, our absence of knowledge and wrong knowledge about these things are root causes of suffering. And therefore, understanding the true nature of action and the true nature of inaction can remove that cause, which is the cause of perpetuating the root cause of suffering. Now, this is not an intellectual thing. The idea is that through the yogic practice, there comes a point where we also will understand what is true action and what is true inaction. We will stop confusing these things. We will understand what is the doer, what is the actor, what is the fruit, who is the enjoyer. All of these things we are going to understand. But this is going to come through yogic practice, not just through intellectual understanding. Of course, you are studying the Bhagavad Gita, and the teacher is teaching you about all these things, no doubt. And this teaching is very valuable because it's like a map. Before you walk on a terrain, you are studying the map. Then when you reach a certain point, a certain rock, then you can say, oh, this rock is that thing which I saw on the map. You saw it first on the map, then you saw the rock in reality. Similarly, now the teacher is teaching you about what is action, what is inaction, what is inaction, inaction, and action, in inaction, and so on. But this is still intellectual. Through the yogic practice, what is understood intellectually is going to be understood experientially, directly. And then you say, oh, now I understand what is inaction, inaction, and action, in inaction, for the first time. This is how it happens. So I wish you good luck to understand all this stuff. It's actually a very beautiful teaching, but still, I wish you the best. Okay.
Om Swamiji, how can I find a proper teacher when I am back home?
You need to search, right? But not through Google. No, I won't say so. You need to search. You need to have the desire to find a proper teacher. Then you need to search. And sometimes what happens is that we go around and we search for teachers and we experience this teacher and that teacher, and after a long journey, we remember one person and we return to that person, and we have an inner understanding that that person is our teacher. And then we spend some time with that person, and to our direct experience, we come to a conclusion whether this is my teacher or not. This is how it happens many, many times. But if there is a desire to find a teacher, we need to search. We cannot just sit idle at home. And it's not enough to Google, because you need to have a direct encounter with a teacher. It's not enough to do it just through books or through the internet and so on. And according to your destiny, you may wander and meeting many teachers and then returning to one teacher. And eventually, when the time is ripe, you will find your own teacher, and then the true spiritual path will start, because when you find your teacher, then you are really entering the spiritual path or the yogic path and so on. So please search. Yes.
Om Swamiji, is prayer effective? Can it bring results?
Prayer is effective and it can bring results. Very effective. Yes, I said everything that I had to say.
Om Swamiji, can I be a good yoga teacher even if I can't find deep entrance into sadhana?
Sadhana means spiritual practice, yogic practice. To teach yoga itself is part of the practice. And practice simply means practice. Practice means that you understand the theory of yoga and you received a certain practice and you need to practice it. And it's good to keep contact with your teacher. For example, to send a spiritual diary to your teacher so the teacher can correct it. If you have a good teacher, a teacher that you trust, it's good to visit periodically the teacher in order to get fresh instruction and so on. But as for sadhana, as for spiritual practice, the main thing is to practice it. There's no such thing, profound entrance or non-profound entrance. The profound entrance means that you got good instruction from a good teacher and you are practicing it. The practice is the main thing. Okay? The practice is the deep entrance.
Om Swamiji. After TTC or ATTC, what should we do? What is our mission? What is the most important lesson or teaching to take away from the TTC program?
Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Be good, do good. Be kind, be compassionate. Adapt, adjust, accommodate. Bear insult, bear injury, highest yoga. Bear insult, bear injury, highest sadhana. Inquire, who am I? Know thyself and be free. Om Tat Sat. That's it.
Om Swamiji. When choosing to take the spiritual path, how can you overcome bad things you have done in your present life?
By doing better things. You overcome bad things by doing good things. A good deed neutralizes the results of a bad deed. By doing many good deeds, you're going to neutralize the results of many bad deeds that you have done out of ignorance. So, as much as you can, be good and do good. As much as you can. I knew a person, a saintly person. I consider that person to be a saintly person. And I asked him once, what is your secret? He said that he took a vow at a certain point in his life that every day he will do one good deed. That's all. And that's what he did. And when I met him first, even then I thought that he is a saintly person. And he was practicing this for many, many years. He continued to practice it. No day should pass without doing at least one good deed. So here you go. You may be the most horrible person, the most terrible person. You may have done many bad deeds, but if starting from this moment you take such a vow, no day is going to pass in my life without doing at least one good deed in that day. The results will be undeniable. And many, many, many results of bad deeds will be neutralized. So here is a very simple practice. It's doable. It can be done. So this is the answer.
Om Swamiji. If all of creation is a manifestation of the divine, and our true self is divine, why is the ultimate goal to transcend the creation and the cycle of birth and death? Why is it not to continue to experience creation with detachment and knowledge of our true self?
Part of the journey of the soul towards perfection involves experiencing creation and realizing the true nature of creation. And the other part of the journey has to do with transcending creation and realizing the self. So the soul is to many, 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 many lives. The soul, I mean the Jivatma or the Purusha, to many lives, many, many reincarnations, realizes these two purposes. One, to experience creation in all possible ways and to realize it in its true nature. And the second, to transcend creation itself and to realize the true nature of the self. Once these two purposes are fulfilled, the soul has attained perfection. So it's clear, once we fulfill the goal which relates to creation, we are ready to move on to the next goal which relates to the realization of the self. And at a certain life this happens. It doesn't happen in one lifetime. There is a certain life in our journey when it happens. And at that time, we will transcend creation. We will realize the self. We will attain perfection. There is no doubt about it. Okay.
Om Swamiji, is the soul always separate from God?
The soul is never separated from God.
Om Swamiji, my guru comes from another lineage. Is it okay that after TTC I will be teaching the Sivananda Yoga?
Of course, once you complete the TTC, you are authorized to teach the system of yoga that is taught within this lineage. You will be authorized, yes.
Om Swamiji, my mind thinks all the time and I am confused, especially here with all the learning. What can I do in order to not to be confused?
There was something about the learning which I couldn't hear.
Yeah, the person says that the learning seems to stimulate their confusion.
Yeah, it's okay. Because what happens is, if you have water which is clear, and let's say you have a pond, and at the bottom of the pond there are many sediments, but on the top you have water which is clear. Now if you stir the water, the sediments which are at the bottom are going to come up. And if the water is going to continue to be stirred, all the sediments will come up, and the water will not be any more transparent or clear. So this is the situation of our mind. Our mind, most of the time, is in different states of confusion. Now, the teachings that you get, actually, by their nature, are going to remove the sediments and are going to clear the confusion. But initially, they are going to increase the confusion even more. But that confusion is going to be cleared because you have a teacher. You can ask the teacher questions. You can receive from the teacher yogic practices like meditation. And by following these teachings and by following these practices, the confusion will be gone. And suddenly you are going to understand the teachings. So teachings which are not understood at this moment will become very clear as you proceed with the learning and with the practice. And when they become clear, they become crystal clear. Okay? But confusion is normal for the mind. The mind has many, many periods of confusion, many periods of turbulence, many periods of lethargy, and also some periods of clarity. Okay?
Om Swamiji, we have learned the good and the benefits of yoga and knowledge. Where does evil rise from, such as people committing crimes, etc.? Is it a mindset or does it exist?
In the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is teaching that each person has within himself or herself divine qualities which are latent potential, and also asuric or demonic qualities which are latent and potential. Each one of us has within light, divine, and also darkness, which is they describe it as demonic. So all of us have it. We have both types of qualities. And a spiritual aspirant is instructed to manifest, on one hand, the divine qualities, and to transcend, to transform, to sublimate the Ashuric qualities. But we have them both within ourselves. So that thing which we call evil comes within our own mind. And it comes from what we call the impurities of our own mind. The impurities of the mind are the source of that thing which we call evil. And those impurities are those Ashuric qualities, those impure qualities which are of the mind. So in the mind, you have both. Now, where did they come? We have lived many, many, many lives. We had many lives, experiences in innumerable lives. So we have both positive, divine, sublime impressions and negative, demonic impressions. We have done terrible things in many, many lives, and we have done sublime things in many, many lives. And therefore, we have the impressions from both type of activities and both type of experiences. And there is a clear instruction in the Bhagavad Gita in the 16th chapter how to assert the divine qualities and how to transcend the negative qualities. So to answer the question, evil comes from within our own mind, from that impure mind, that mind which is not yet purified. Yeah.
Om Swamiji. Is it recommended to perform a ceremony on the annual date of a loved one passing away? Is it a good thing to remember the earthly life of a loved one?
Yes and yes. It's good. It's a good thing to perform a spiritual ritual at the day when the person passed away. It's good to remember that person, but in a good way. You see, in traditions like the Vedic tradition, all of these rituals already exist. There are special rituals that are done for the person that passed away, and they are performed at specific times and so on. And it is said that it's very good to remember our forefathers and our foremothers, because when we remember them in a good way, it also helps them, but it also helps us. Okay.
Om Swamiji. I'm struggling to understand the difference between religion and yoga as a way of life. Can you please explain what the difference is?
Yoga means it's something, it's like a science of how to realize the self. It's a very precise methodological system, very, very precise system of theory and practice of how to realize the self and how to realize the nature of things. The word religion has a similar meaning like yoga, because religion means reunion, and yoga also means union of the individual self with the Supreme Self. So is religion. Religion also means union. But in our tradition, when we want to say religion, we say dharma. And dharma means a conduct of life which leads to happiness here and hereafter, and ultimately leads to self-realization. This is the meaning of dharma. Contrary to dharma is adharma, a conduct of life which leads to misery here and hereafter, and which takes the person away from the goal of human life, which is self-realization. And then the third thing is swadharma, your own duty. When you do your own duty, you help every single being within this creation, because everyone does his duties. We help each other by doing our duties selflessly. And when we do our duties selflessly, we purify our own mind, and the purification of the mind is the key to being able to enter the path of yoga or the path of meditation. So in our system we have something which is called Sanatana Varna Ashrama Dharma, means the eternal law or conduct which is being practiced through the stages of life and through the Varnas. The Varnas popularly are known as the frames of life which are determined by the structure of your mind, and they are determined also by your own karma. So this is our understanding of religion. Religion really means a conduct of life which leads to the highest good. This is the meaning of religion. Yoga is more precise because yoga comes in at the very last stage of the journey when the person is ready to realize the self. Religion is appropriate for many, many people at different levels of evolution, while yoga is appropriate for people that reach that point in the journey of the soul where they can actually put in practice the knowledge and the practice of yoga. And curiously, in the 21st century, hundreds of millions of people are practicing yoga. So this is extraordinary. I don't think it ever happened in the history of this planet. I think it's probably the first time. Okay. Last question.
Swamiji, can a non-yogi attain enlightenment?
No. A non-yogi cannot attain enlightenment. But saying it, what is, again, it's like action and inaction. Who is a yogi and who is not a yogi? See, a yogi is a person who received knowledge of how to attain self-realization. And he puts this knowledge into practice. And it takes a few lifetimes, even if you practice it diligently. It may take few lifetimes before you can attain that particular goal. So you may say within a lifetime, you may see that a person attains enlightenment without practicing yoga. Now, this is not possible. Behind every mystical experience, there is practice. Not necessarily from this life, but there is practice. There are people who have a mystical experience of oneness with all existence, and you cannot see any practice in this lifetime. But surely, according to, at least to our teaching, there is past practice. You cannot have this type of experience without having practice behind it. So you may not be a yogi in this life, although I doubt it, but surely you were a yogi in a certain past life. And a yogi does not always wear orange. You also need to understand this. There are yogis that may wear a tuxedo, or they may wear something else, and they are still yogis. A yogi is not judged by his external appearance. A yogi is judged by his level of consciousness or level of awareness. So when we are born, we are already born many times with a lot of practice behind us, and within that particular life we continue the journey. And then we may say, oh, this person attained enlightenment without practice. There is no such a thing. For example, the great Sri Ramana Maharshi was asked whether he attained his enlightenment without practice, and he denied it. He denied also the claim that he has no guru. He said clearly that he does have a guru. So behind every spiritual realization, there is a lot of practice. Okay? And there is also a yogi. When I say a yogi, I don't mean necessarily a Hindu yogi, but a yogi for sure. I think I'm done.